section 11.7, now what we're going to do is we're going to learn how can we take this quadratic form of the equation, y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, and convert it into this vertex form so we can make graphs. All right? So the first thing you're going to notice that the y is the same on both sides, therefore we never want to alter it. Next, you're going to notice that, hey, these two a's are exactly the same. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that this a is going to be moved out to the front of the parentheses, and we want to change this into a binomial squared and add the k to it. So the first technique is completing the square, because that's where we got this binomial squared. So we're going to look at two examples, one with an a value of 1, which I will consider the easiest, and two, if there's something other than a 1 in front. So we're going to take x squared plus 8x plus 1 and consider thinking about, hey, let's put parentheses around this because it doesn't factor. We want to get rid of this 1. So as you start to write this down, though, we're going to put a plus blank on the inside and a minus blank on the outside. Now, when we completed the square before, we put a plus blank on both sides, but you cannot alter the y. The y cannot be manipulated, so we're just going to leave it here. So what we don't want to do is say, oh, we'll subtract over the 1, and then we'll add it back over. No, let's just leave it here. And since you said, well, let's subtract the 1 over and add it back, well, let's just subtract whatever we're going to add on the inside. So if you think about this as being a balance scale, if I add something to the right side, it goes down. When I subtract the same amount, it comes back up to be balanced. So plus on the inside, minus on the outside. And we're going to treat our completing the square the same way. We're going to look at that plus 8, that's your b. You're going to divide it by 2, that's positive 4. You're going to square that, and that becomes 16 on the outside. Now, again, remember, we don't want to change this plus 4 squared because this is going to turn into my binomial x plus 4, all in parentheses squared. And 1 minus 16 becomes minus 15. And there you have it. We are now in this vertex form. Now, y equals 3x squared minus 12x minus 5. I would consider completing the square here only because, again, think about grouping the two x terms, and you can take a GCF of a 3 out. All right, so there's my parentheses. As I'm writing this down, I'm going to put in a plus blank and a minus blank out here. Now remember, this a being multiplied to the x squared is the same as this a on the outside of the parentheses, so this must come out as a GCF. So we're going to take the GCF out from these terms. And I know this is going to seem weird, but we don't know this value yet. How do we take a 3 out of here? I'll show you. The 3 is moved out to the front from 3x squared and then minus 12. Now, how do we know we took a 3 out of here? Well, this 3 times whatever this number is needs to be tripled over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to put 3 parentheses blank. This is 3 parentheses this blank. So this will be minus 3 times the parentheses, and what this blank is, we fill it here. So just like we did over here, you take a positive 8 divided by 2 is a positive 4, you square it. We're going to take negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2 squared is a positive 4. So now that becomes 3 parentheses x minus 2, all that squared, and we'll have negative 3 times 4 is negative 12, minus 5, negative 17, and there's my vertex. That's my vertex form of the equation. Now, I know what you're thinking. I'm going to forget this 3. I do once in a while as well. So there is another technique that we will use. This is called the vertex formula to change ugly ax squared plus bx plus c's into this. So as we mentioned, these two a's are going to be exactly the same. All we have to do is solve for h and k, and that's going to be our vertex formula right here. The vertex formula is a point. Your x-coordinate is negative b over 2a. Your y-coordinate is to take the x, plug it back into the original equation, and solve it for y. That's what this notation means. And that gives us our y value. So here, a is 3, b is negative 6, c is 1. Take that a, which is 3, and put it in your answer right now. Right, just like we did when we factored, we wrote down what my answer has to look like. Same thing here, 3 right there for the a. Now to find hk, we're going to find negative b over 2a. So negative 6 over 2 times the a, which is 3. Well, this will be a positive 6 on the top. This is a positive 6 on the bottom. That's a 1. So there's your h. If you want, we can go put it in right now. There it is. To find the k, which is your y-coordinate, take this one, plug it back into the original equation. So 3 times 1 squared minus 6 times 1 plus 1. 1 squared is 1 times 3, 3. Minus 6 plus 1. That's a negative 2. Now, do you have to leave it in this point format? No. If you want to do negative b over 2a by itself, you want to plug it in without having the v and the 1 here, that's fine too. Just get to that negative 2, put it in for k, so plus a negative 2 or minus 2, and there's the equation in vertex form. This is the one I like to do. It's quicker and easier to take care of. Now, the fastest way to find out the vertex is to graph, trace, and enter x equals 1. And the vertex will be listed on the graph. So for example, you go to y equals, you type in 3x squared minus 6x plus 1. All right, you graph it. You hit the trace button so x and y shows up on the bottom. You'll probably see a 0 and a 1 here. Once you hit trace, type in a 1, enter, and your cursor better be flashing at the vertex of your parabola. If it is, then there's your k value, negative 2. So there's your h, boom, x minus 1. There's your k, minus 2. Remember that x to the h is always a change of signs. Next, we have y equals 3x squared minus 8x plus 5. A is 3, b is negative 8, c is 5. All right, so like I said, find negative 8 over 2 times 3. Go ahead and find negative b over 2a first. 2 negatives, that's an 8. 2 goes into 8 4 times, it's 4/3. All right, so we have the h. Now we're going to go plug it into our equation right here. 3 times 4/3 squared minus 8 times 4/3 plus 5. You can go to your calculator, type it in just as you see it. It's negative 1/3. Here's your h, here's your k. Grab your a value, put that in your answer on the outside of the parentheses, x minus 4/3, binomial squared. Don't forget that, a lot of people do, minus the 1/3. So again, you can graph it. I type in 4/3. Now when I type this in with the trace button, this is not a division symbol, it's a fraction bar. So once I go to trace and and I type in 4, then alpha y equals, activate the fraction, gives you this thick fraction bar, type in a 3. That way when you get your y back, it will be returned as a fraction as well and not a decimal. So again, use your calculator. You can see my cursors flashing right there at the vertex, so I know these numbers are correct. All right, then you're going to have questions where they're going to ask you to find the vertex, find the line of symmetry, find a max or min value, and all x and y intercepts. So everything off your graph. Well, I'm going to go back one screen. All right, so looking at this graph right here, I can find my vertex. I can find my x-intercepts where they cross the x-axis. I can find my y-intercept. My line of symmetry is going to be this x-coordinate right here, x equals 1. That's the vertical line. Then what do I mean by relative max or min? Your graph here has a low point, which we would call a minimum value. And the y-coordinate, or your k value, is that max or min value. And in this case, it's a min. We'll be at a min at -2. And we can do this all without graphing. So y equals x squared minus 10x minus 3. I'm going to do this by completing the square. All right, but first, before I do that, all right, the y-intercept is the quickest and easiest thing to find. A y-intercept is always at 0 for an x-coordinate. Well, if I put 0 in for these x's, this becomes 0, this becomes 0, I'm left with a -3 or a -3. So 0, c is the y-intercept. Done. Now, even if they don't give you that in order, write that down first because that's the quickest and easiest to find. Now we want to go find the vertex, hk. I want to convert this into this format. Now there's a 1 there, so there's not, my a is a 1, there's going to be a 1 there. So to find h and k really fast, all right, it's going to be, the vertex is going to be, let's see, x minus 5 quantity squared minus 28. Yes, you can do this between your ears. Well, I thought there was a plus or minus. You're absolutely right. If you need to write it down, write it down. But I've noticed that every time I take half of the -10, that's -5. I'm also put it in right now. Then take that 5 and square it for 25. And remember, it's minus on the outside. So -3 minus 25 is the -28. So now we can start doing this, completing the square between our ears as long as this is a 1. Half of the b, boom, x minus 5. Put it in there squared. Oh, speaking of square, square that 25. -3 minus 25, -28. We're done. So my vertex, change the sign, -5 to a +5. -28's on the outside, keep it for face value. There's my vertex. Now, line of symmetry, max or min, all come from the vertex. Your line of symmetry is automatically x equals 5. This is the equation of a vertical line. That was that vertical dashed line that cut the graph in half. So you must have an equal sign here. Now, max or min, that depends, did the parabola open up or did it open down? Well, because your x squared is positive 1, the parabola opens up. And what I'm going to do is say, okay, then that's going to be a min. That's going to be the low point is my vertex, -28. Next, we got to find the x-intercepts. That's the last thing. So what I like to do is to make a quick, rough graph. 5, -28 is going to be in quadrant 4. 5 to the right, down negative 28. Okay, there it is right there. We said it opens up. It's opening up. Do you see the graph crossing the x-axis? Yes. Therefore, I have to go find those x-intercepts. If my graph, let's say, had the vertex up here in quadrant 1 and opened up, it never crosses the x-axis, and I would have to say, oh, there are no x-intercepts because it will not cross the x-axis. I'm done. So to find those x values right here on the x-axis, go back to your equation right here and set it equal to 0. X minus 5 quantity squared minus 28 set equal to 0. Add the 28 over. Take the square root of both sides. All right, that's going to be x minus 5 equals a positive negative square root of 28. Remember, there's a factor of 4 in there. The square root of 4 is 2, so we can factor that out. And add over the 5, you get 5 plus or minus 2 square root of 7. Now, these are x-intercepts, which have to be written as a point. So 5 plus 2 square root of 7, comma 0. There's one ordered pair, comma 5 minus 2 times the square root of 7, comma 0. There's the 2 points. All right, here we have y equals 4x squared plus 8x plus 5. Probably don't want to complete the square. I'm probably going to go to my vertex formula. But first, quickest and easiest, y-intercept, 0, comma 5. There it is. That's my y-intercept. Now, to find my vertex, we're going to go to the vertex formula. Remember, negative b over 2a, then plug it back in to find it. So negative 8 over 2 times 4. This will be a negative 1, which means now we need to take negative 1 and substitute it into these x's. That's what this notation here means. So 4 times negative 1 squared, well, that'll be a positive 1 times 4, that's 4. 8 times minus 1, that'll be a minus 8, plus 5. So 4 minus 8 is negative 4, plus 5 is a 1. There's my vertex, done. And once you have your vertex, now you can take your line of symmetry, x equals the x coordinate. And again, because 4 is positive, the graph has to open up, so then it's going to be a min value. Opening up is a min, opening down is a max. So we have a min at the y coordinate of 1. Don't put equals, just put minimum at 1. Now, this vertex is negative 1 to the left, up 1. It's sitting in quadrant 2. We declared it opened up. Do you see this graph crossing the x-axis? Not at all. Therefore, there are no x-intercepts. If you did try to do the work by hand, you would want to take 4 parentheses x plus 1, close the parentheses squared, plus 1, set it equal to 0, and you'll notice that you would be taking the square root of a negative number, which you cannot have on the graph. So I think it's easier just to draw a quick graph. Plot your vertex, and then open up or open down. If it crosses, find them. If it doesn't cross, you're done. Find the vertex line of symmetry, max or min. Okay, same directions, y equals x squared minus 7x plus 4. All right, quick and easy, y-intercept, 0, comma 4. There's a 1 here, so I'm going to go to completing the square. So negative 7 divided by 2 is negative 7 halves. And then 4 minus 49 over 4. I'll probably have to type that in the calculator to get negative 33 over 4. Square the 7, square the 2, subtract it out front. Yeah, I'm not going to lie, I used my calculator. 4 minus 49 divided by 4. Hit the math button to make sure it turns it back into a fraction. Negative 33 over 4. Then we change it to minus 33 over 4. There's my vertex. Found it. Once you have your vertex, you have your line of symmetry. X equals 7 halves. All right? This parabola, because we had a positive 1x squared, is going to open up. So I'm thinking, okay, here we go. Quadrant 7 halves to the right, down negative. I'm down here in quadrant 4. It's opening up. And since it's opening up, I'll have a min value at the y coordinate of the vertex. Each one of those coordinates in the vertex will be used for something. And it crosses the x-axis. So therefore, I need to take this equation, set it equal to 0. Add over the 33 over 4. Now take the square root of both sides. Plus or minus the square root of 33. There's no perfect square factor in there. It's only 3 and 11. But 4 is a perfect square. That's a 2. Add over the 7 halves in front of the plus or minus. There's my x's. We just have to write them as a point. 7 halves plus the square root of 33 over 2, comma 0. And 7 halves minus the square root of 33 over 2, comma 0. So when typing this in, if you have to type in 2 separate points, they might ask for which one's furthest to the right, which one's furthest to the left. Furthest to the right is always plus. Furthest to the left is always minus. Type 1 in, copy it, paste it, and change the sign. Find the vertex. Oh, same directions. Okay, here we go. Y-intercept first, 0, comma 3. Done. Oh, we have an ugly, ugly a, negative 2. Find the vertex using the vertex formula. We're going negative 5 over 2 times negative 2. So negative 5 over negative 4 is a positive 5/4. Then we take 5/4 and we plug it back in for all those x's. Negative 2 times 5/4 squared plus 5 times 5/4 plus 3. I'm not going to lie to you. I went to my calculator. Negative 2 left parentheses 5 divided by 4, close it up, squared, plus 5 times 5 divided by 4, close them up, plus 3. It fell off the screen. Return my answer as a fraction, 49 over 8. Now here, because the a is negative, this is going to open down. So now my line of symmetry, x equals 5/4, but because it opens down, it's no longer a min, it's now a max at that y coordinate. So again, these are a positive x, positive y. That puts me in quadrant 1. Opening down, it's crossing the x-axis. I need to go find those values. So I'm going to take the negative 2 parentheses x minus 5/4, close the parentheses squared, plus 49 over 8. There's my a, here's your h, here's your k. Put it into y equals a times x minus h quantity squared plus k. Time to solve. Undo what you see. We have to subtract over the 49/8. Done. Next, we have to get rid of multiplying and dividing. All right, I could divide by negative 2, but I don't want to divide that with my fraction, so I'm going to take the reciprocal of negative 2, which is negative 1/2, and multiply it to both sides. This cancels out, leaving me x minus 5/4 quantity squared. Negative 49 times negative 1 is positive 49. 8 times 2 is 16. Oh, how wonderful. They're both perfect squares. So when I take the square root, I'm going to get a positive negative 7 over 4, which means I have 2 equations to write. On I'm going to add over the 5/4. I'm going to add it to the 7/4. That's 12/4, which is 3. Add over the 5/4 to the minus 7/4. That's -2/4, or -1/2. So that means this x being 3, that's the point 30. This x being a -1/2, that means my other x-intercept is -1/2, 0. Then they're going to ask you to write the equation of a parabola with the vertex at 4, -3 and contains the point 6, -11. Well, if they're giving me the vertex, then I need to use the vertex equation format. So this is technically h, this is k. I have 2 out of the 3 variables, I just need to solve for a. All right? Over here, 6, -11, this is x and a y. That's some other point. So I put in the h, I put in my k. We need to solve for a. Well, therefore, you need to have an x and a y value. We'll steal that from this point right here. So -11 goes in for y, 6 goes in for this x. 6 minus 4 is 2. 2 squared is 4. So 4a minus 3, go ahead and solve for a, add over the 3, makes it -8, divide over the 4, makes it -2. Then we'll take -2 and put it right there in front of our parentheses. And there's our equation. And that wraps up 11.7.